Hey everyone, and welcome back to Career Accelerator Academy, the podcast where we talk to real professionals who have built real careers and we ask them the real practical questions which can help you to make you better in your current job and also to move up the ladder. Now, here's the thing, we don't do theory here, no textbook answer, just honest conversations about what actually works in the real world. If you're new here, I'm Amit Mathur, and today's guest is someone whose journey I think many of you will relate to because she did not start at the top. She started exactly where many of you are right now. Kritika Sharma brings 17 years of experience in IT delivery. She began her career as a software developer, moved into QA and ELT testing, and step by step built herself into an agile delivery manager and program manager. Today, she leads delivery for some of the most complex projects across insurance, banking, financial services, and healthcare. What makes her stories powerful is this: she has done almost every job on the team before leading the team. She understands what it feels like to be the fresher in the room, and she knows what it takes to eventually become the person running the room. She has led waterfall to agile transformations, managed both offshore and onshore teams, worked hands on with tools like Azure DevOps and JIRA, and is now using Gen AI to make delivery smarter. She also holds CSM and PMI-ACP certifications and has been recognized multiple times for both delivery excellence and people development. Let's welcome her to Career Accelerator Academy. Let's welcome Kritika Sharma to the Career Accelerator Academy. Hi Kritika, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Amit. It's a pleasure having me here on your podcast. And I tell you, this is my first experience where I'm actually having one-on-one conversations, and maybe I just come up with my experiences and help many of people like me who are still in this industry and struggling to understand how it is to be there in the competition. So, thanks again.
And the pleasure is ours. So before we start, would you like to tell us about yourself, like where you started and where you are today?
Okay, so Amit, now I have 17 years of experience, and I started my career as a developer in .NET technology. So that time, now we have so many technologies being into market, but that time .NET was on top. So I started my career in .NET. Wherein I was the first developer who joined the organization where IT team was forming. So that was a good break for me in terms of understanding how you can use your brains and all of it which you would have learned in your college days, right? Programming that we would have learned, although I experienced that programming doesn't matter a much until you have that hands-on experience. So that's something I started to learn with. Then it was my first exposure to have interactions with UK client, because prior to this, during my college days or school days, we never had a chance to talk to people from UK or US, right? So there was a little bit of hesitance, I would say, at that moment, because we Indians, right, what matter it is, we still hesitant to talk to uh, the people who are outside, right? And maybe a language that we start speaking. English is something that we start to learn during our career that way. So that was my good experience in terms of communications. Also, I started to grow, as well as technically also I started to understand things better. Then after .NET, so there was a requirement to move into Informatica or data analytics part. So I also worked in various domains where I was required to work into data analytics and stuff. Yeah, so I started it with Decorative Health that time, and so we used to work on SSIS, SSRS packages. And I still remember one senior who used to do hand holding. Kritika, you're doing it wrong. Let me explain you how to write SQL queries and all, right? Because
Okay.
that requires a lot of data analysis kind of a work. You get into it, and that is the time when I actually understood that this is the area where I want to grow much. Because when I used to look into the data, something had in my mind that this is something that I like about. I may not be going into too much of .NET coding and all, but data, I always love to read, do the analysis, come up with the approaches where I could come up with some good implementation strategies as well. So data was my area where I started to understand when I moved into data and analytics reporting part. After I worked in data and analytics, so there was a career break for me due to some personal reasons. So I had taken almost 8 to 9 months of break after that. But again, after that 9 months, I just came back to the industry, and you know how it is, right? Once you have a break, it's really tough to get back into IT, I would say. So that
Correct.
time, I still remember the days where I used to, recall what I would have learned in those 2 or 3 years of my career before having a break, and then going into interviews. And I remember I failed a couple of them, and that was like, what am I doing? Right. So that is the time I got an opportunity to work with Microsoft over there. I found it a good opportunity, even though it was not into development, but it involved SQL and the data warehouse testing, which was my area. Even though it was not development, but that was my area where I actually
Correct.
wanted to go forward with, right? And you know how it is, right? Once you have an experience, you have to compromise somewhere or the other. But again, it was an opportunity for me to get into data side of things. So I just started. I accepted that offer. I got good learnings in terms of writing heavy queries for testing purpose, automating them. So automating SQL queries is a bit challenging, right? Sometimes having a framework ready where you're just writing your queries and validating whatever your developer using Informatica or SSIS would have already developed, right? So that's something that was a good exposure for me around with HCL technologies, I would say. Then it was in Hyderabad. I came back to Delhi.
Huh.
Then I joined again. It was into testing only where I joined Taurus Insurance as well. And great people, great experience, great things happened there. But unfortunately, that company has to be closed in India because they were moving their operations in US.
Okay.
So for 1 2 years, I again had it with SQL data warehouse testing role that I had played, where I've led a few of the people also.
Uh-huh.
So that's one. Then so that is where I started to have an instinct that now I want to grow to a next level, right? As you grow with your experience, right? So you look for more opportunities, more growth in terms of managing team, having more people connect to understand how industry work, have more of a stakeholder communications. So that is something where I thought that I need to move a ladder up, maybe into project management or something.
Uh-huh.
I Even though I joined Accenture as a tester that time, but slowly and gradually, with the experience that I was gaining in Accenture, I thought it's a better idea because that time, so I'm talking about 8 years or maybe 9 10 years before from now, right? So that time,
So around
Scrum Master role,
2011, 2014, 15, something like that, right? Yeah.
yeah, for 14, I would say, right?
Yeah.
2014. So that was the time where Scrum Master was a boom in market, right?
Yeah.
Everybody was
New cream in the market. Yeah.
new
Correct.
themes. Everybody was after, having CSMs done. Scrum Master was like a cream for everybody. So I also
Correct.
felt that this is something that I can manage well.
Hmm.
And somewhere I had that psychologically also, I feel that I connect to the people very well. I
Uh-huh.
understand them, right? So that is where I felt that I can manage a team. And this is a role where can give me more opportunity to go into a program management role as well, right? So I still remember in Accenture, it was my UK project. even though we used to have agile, agile, I mean, we used to say that we are following agile, and it was more of the JIRA boards that we were updating, writing user stories, and people used to call it agile. And
Yeah.
same understanding I also have that time.
That's how many companies are still doing.
Right. So what people think is, if we are creating a backlog, or if we are creating a user story, and if we are updating them, that means agile. But that is not how it is, right? So I also used to think the same. Oh, you just need to update the boards. You just need to have the stand-up being run. You need to just ask the team what they did yesterday, what they're doing, and any impediments that they had. So for me, it was like, it's a good role, right?
So the whole organization was doing implementing agile like this. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
So in this case, I think this leads to my next question. Basically, that so when you say the company was adopting these activities and calling it an agile, how did you realize that the practices that has been followed are not exactly right as per the agile methodologies or fundamentals? How did you learn, and how did you manage to like turn this into your organization? Because Accenture
Okay.
is a
So
big company, right? Like there are
right,
not small
right.
companies, so it's not easy
So
to change any
exact,
practices which has been
exact.
following from a very long time.
Right. So I remember that time I got an opportunity to work in a project, right, where they actually follow 2 sprint cycle, 3 sprint cycle, and saying that they are all agile, having development and testing working together and all that stuff. So I still remember my counterpart in UK, and I mean, he at that moment he was my coach, I would say, rather, and
Okay.
I'm still very thankful to him to help me understand what exactly agile deliveries are. So he
Okay.
was the one who told me, Kritika, it's not only about updating, Jira boards, having the user stories being, and just go in the stand up and just ask status and come back. So he explained me how it works. So he came up with a very good idea. So normally daily stand-ups, right? So people, what they think is it has to be 15 minutes of a daily stand-up where you talk
Correct.
about any impediments and all. We used
Mm.
to have it for 30 minutes. And
Mm.
the reason why we used to have it for 30 minutes, first 15 minutes, we just talk about everybody's update. And
It's
again,
like a status update meeting.
status update, and that too, initially when I started, right, so I used to take name of the people. Now
Correct.
you
Correct.
go ahead with your status update. Now it's your turn. So again, it's not something process that we follow in agile, but it's just how you want to make your team self organized, right?
Hmm.
So the
Hmm.
strategy that he told me is, Kritika, you don't need to take any names, let team talk. So you just be a silent listener. Let team only come forward. What they can do is, if a first person is giving a status, probably he'll just raise his or her hand on the teams, right? Once he is done, the second person will take it over. You don't have to take
Hmm.
names. Let people only come forward and tell about their status. I
Correct.
liked it. I mean, the way
Yeah.
I started, I was like, yeah, it's a good approach. I mean, why would I be a gatekeeper and calling everybody's name? Now it's your turn. Now I was not a class teacher, right? And
Correct.
mainly agile is all about how you make your team empowered, how you make your team self organized, right? So what we used to do is, first 15 minutes, it was all about the status, and team used to talk about all of it. Then last 15 minutes, we just used it for a parking lot. And what does
So
this parking lot?
this is basically after you adopted what your coach told you. Correct.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So first 15 minutes, because Agile says that you need to have your daily standards for 15 minutes, and people take
Hmm.
it
Hmm. Hmm.
very bookish also. But we used to have it for
Correct.
30 minutes, and practically I've implemented and it works. Why? Because sometimes when people start giving their statuses, they go into detail of it, right?
Yes.
So
Correct.
what we do is, if I'm giving my status, if there is anything that I want to discuss with the team in detail, I'll just mention that discussion point, and I'll say we'll discuss it in a parking lot,
Hmm.
so that at least you can use everybody's time in an effective way. So if there is any topic, let's suppose there is XYZ topic that I need some inputs from any member or any one of the member in the team. So what I'll do is I'll just say that I need to discuss this. I'm putting it in a parking lot for the last 15 minutes, right?
Okay.
So once you have done with your status update, we'll look into the discussion points, parking lot items, and we'll ask who all are needed. So only the relevant people will stay in the call and rest can leave, so that
Leave.
at least you're not wasting any of their important time, right? So
Correct.
time management is also important.
Yeah.
So that was the first
To
ceremony
my
that
viewers, like I will say I would like to stop you here because I have few questions related to that. Because a lot of people, a lot of organizations, companies, managers are still using the daily standard like this, that a manager goes in the room and he started asking questions. Okay, what have you done? What have you done? Anything. So they wanted to follow the practices, but they are not aware of it. Now, the one of the question which comes in my mind is basically that suppose two members of your team have not done anything based on the task which were assigned to them or picked by them, and they are not giving any updates. In that case, how do you make sure that there is transparency in those calls or in those sessions, or do you need
I
to keep that? Main question is that do you need to have that transparency?
see, when you're working in agile, transparency is the first thing that you need to follow, right? And that is where
Correct.
you start gaining your stakeholder confidence as well, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
sometimes, as a scrum master or a manager, I would say we need to protect our team also, right?
Hmm.
We do. So agile doesn't say that. It's more not
I think
not a
I
blame
think
game.
I will also ask you in a way that how do you empower those members to make them understand that it is not our responsibility to understand what the status of the activities are, but it is your responsibility because these are your tasks. So you need to come forward because they are hesitant and this is what they have seen. So a lot of
Hmm.
people in India, especially who are junior developers, are hesitant to come on front and speak. So how
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
make sure to enable them so that they
Hmm.
understand that we what we are doing here in the calls is not a status report. We will not be penalized if we have done or not done, but we are only here to talk about the challenges if we have faced. So how do
Right.
you empower those team members? And I think this is a basic principle as well, because every person is an owner in a way of their own activity or task which they have
Accountable,
taken.
yes.
Correct? Yeah.
Right. So you very well said, Amit, that everybody is the owner, and that comes with the accountability, right? And we,
Hmm.
as project managers, are the one who can actually make this happen in a team, right? So that they feel empowered. So, given a situation where you said that two of the team members would not give their status and may say that they didn't do something that they were actually assigned for, right? So maybe in that situation, again, there could be some personal reasons or something that would have made them not to do those, right? So
Hmm.
firstly, not to make them feel odd, I might take it offline to understand if there were any challenges. If it is related to the work and something, it's okay to be open about it, and we are there to resolve, right? So that is the comfort. Maybe as a person, I would say I would like to bring more, so that they feel comfortable and they have that psychological safety as well, while saying that this is the problem and this is the challenge I face. So it's all about environment. And as we keep, studying, it's all about mindset. It's all about, not the processes, people over processes or some. There are few principles that we process. So that is where it comes. Because I've seen people. So if it is the first time that they're having that daily stand up, they might be hesitant. But as a manager, I need to make them comfortable as well, that this is a ceremony that we do and we are here to help you in case you are stuck anywhere, so that they feel comfortable telling whatever be the reason. See,
Hmm.
in today's world, there could be a lot of personal reasons also that people
Could be.
might
Yeah.
not be open about. So that is
Correct.
something I can take it as a takeaway for me from the call, so that in case a person is not comfortable to get open in front of all, I'll take it offline. But if it is something work related, I can just mention if there is anything that we can help as a team, again, not as an individual, but as a team, if we can help that person to come up with his challenges and the reasons for not being able to do, or any technical support he might have been required to complete those user stories. So that kind of conversations we'll have to do to make that person comfortable, in my experience, I would say more.
And how do you like it's easier to teach or to empower the team who are working for you, but there are a lot of senior management also involved in the project which you are working on. And there, I mean, you can always like empower the team, change the mindset of the team who are working for, in bringing a transformation, saying that okay, this is the different way of project we are doing, this is the different methodology, we are not following the waterfall, you don't have to know everything and you can change it. But to senior leadership who are still in the same way, like this is the task that has to be done in like 5 days, why it's not done in 5 days, something like that, how do you bring that change in your senior leadership?
So, Amit, I think that's very well been asked, because recently I have had this situation, right, where team was actually transitioning from waterfall to agile deliveries.
Mhm.
And as you know how waterfall works, right? So it's a
Yeah,
sequential. So people have a lot of time, they work in the background, not coming in front of the stakeholder for any of the status reports and all. It just the seniors who go and present their work on a monthly or a weekly basis, right? So
correct.
they have a lot of leverage, and in the background they just you utilize that time, and with a very free mind, oh, I have 10 days, I'll complete it, right? But
Yeah.
with agile, it's, I would say, it gives an opportunity to have stakeholder communication, right, as well as it is aggressive than waterfall,
Hmm.
right? So it's
Correct,
like,
exactly.
if you have given if you're going with an approach of 2 weeks or 3 week cycle, right, every day you have your daily stand-ups with the client, whatever the goal or the sprint goal that you have defined at the start of the
Correct.
sprint. Obviously the idea is to have that completed by end of the sprint. And every day is a challenge also. No, not a challenge, I would say, but it's more of a aggressive work that we are doing, but in a collaborative way, so
Hmm.
that people doesn't feel left out, that I am like stressed and working just to reach a phase where I complete all of my user stories at the right time. There could be challenges, there could be anything that might, push back to have your user stories or the sprint goal met, but we all understand, and that is where the stakeholder communication comes into place. Because if you'll maintain that transparency, right, if
Mhm.
you maintain that transparency, obviously step by step you are updating your stakeholders, you are updating your senior leadership. Waterfall, what happens, you did all of it, and by end of 2 months and 3 months you're saying, yeah, I'm not able to do it, right? So
Correct.
it's like you just wasted 2-3 months, wherein you would have already communicated that in first week and 2 weeks of time when you started and having to have that
True.
challenges. But that is where people need to understand. So leadership plays a very important role when you need to have that mindset change, right? Without senior leadership it is impossible, I would say.
Mhm.
And I was lucky enough where my seniors had supported me in terms of giving me an opportunity and giving me a I would say full authority
Hmm.
to
Correct.
work, because it was client expectation, right, that they
Yes,
wanted to
exactly.
move from waterfall to agile. So I think they had given me a full opportunity to take it the way I wanted to, because I had that
Mhm.
experience of agile prior to
Yes.
it, but the team didn't have it. So there were a lot of, I still remember breakthrough moments of for me also. And that was the time where I realized, where it was all bookish in my knowledge, that mindset change. Because I always worked with a team who already knew agile, right? Or maybe not to the extent, but at least some of it. But
Sure.
here in my current organization, when the main target or for me was to have that transition made with, I think, 10 team members at that moment, and the project was huge. And it was the same project where they used to deliver it previously with Waterfall and then to Agile. All of a sudden, they had to, create an environment where they develop, deploy with CI/CD pipelines and all, right? So
Yeah.
it just, and you're very right that during retrospections we have too many ceremonies, right? During like sprint planning, we do daily stand-ups, then we have story point estimations also, which is known as three amigos also, some people call it three amigos. And then we have sprint reviews and sprint retro. So sprint retro is the one which is the most compromised ceremony, I would say, in Agile.
Yes, I think
People
this is
just
one of
take
the
it
question I
very
wanted to
light.
ask you as well.
Yeah,
I think let's
this is
let's do
the
one
thing.
thing for
Mm.
let's do one thing for our users perspective. Let's define agile, or maybe like in your from an practical perspective, how, I mean, when your project comes in and you are introducing agile, then if you can just list the practices which you're following through agile, that would be helpful. Like start to finish, like in a circle, like what goes on, what the output looks like.
Okay, so if I want to just, so again, it is not that a set process that you have to follow, but yes, there are some guidelines, I would say, that we have in Agile methodology that we should follow to have successful deliveries. So
So
what we do
say
is,
example, I'm a customer. I have a business case based on then I created my RFP. Then I've given the RFP to you. Then we selected you as my team who will be working for me in agile mindset. Okay, so now you have the high level requirements. What happens after that?
you're right. So high level requirements, that means you might not have to have a full view of the project, the end project that they want to see. So you'll
Like
identify a
you're
MVP.
aware. Yeah, so
Hmm,
basically you are aware what needs to be done, but the details are not there. So
right.
details are not there, but there is a, so step one is like, how do you define the budget of a project where the requirements are not 100% defined or on the papers?
So first, I think I'll start with the MVP. So
Hmm.
MVP is the minimal viable product. So
Correct.
minimal viable product means what is the minimum functionality that client want to see, right?
Hmm.
And which at least start doing or start making some progress to the end result that they want to see. So first we'll just work on the MVP part of things. And mostly in Agile, we do not do the full planning in one go.
Hmm.
We do it on quarter by quarter basis, so that at least we know the vision for for next 1 quarter,
Hmm.
wherein when we reach that phase we start planning for the next quarter, and that is how we move it into a iterative planning as well. So the way
Correct.
we are doing the iterative deliveries, we also do the iterative planning.
And
So
who does that in the, I mean, whose responsibility is it to do that?
it's mostly, I would say, at a initial phase, I would say it's the stakeholder along with the project team. Again, the project team
Okay.
is not fully formed at this stage, right? When you are
Okay.
actually planning. So
But there
maybe
is a
with
but there is a product owner in this one already defined.
yes, product owner has to be there because he's
Okay.
the one who will be bringing up the requirements for us, right?
Okay.
Or will be letting us the product that they actually want to see, basis the interactions that they have with the end
Hmm.
customer. So
Okay.
initially we just do a t-shirt sizing, I would say,
Uh-huh.
whether the requirements that we have been provided around the MVP or the full product that we have, whether it falls under large, medium or small.
Okay.
So every organization have a different set. So let's suppose if it is large, they just make it like it might take 4 to 5 months of time. I mean, this is
Okay.
just a very high level planning that they're
Yeah,
doing.
yeah,
Just get
exactly.
an
Correct.
idea like how long it might take basis the
True,
complexity
true.
and the t-shirt sizing.
Yeah.
Medium may take 3 to 4 weeks. Again, Agile doesn't have a set uh,
Yeah, correct.
process. It's just how organizations want to see it, right?
Yes.
3 to 4 months for maybe medium. Small could be 1 to 2 months, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
at least at a very high level planning, we'll have an understanding whether it is falling under which t-shirt size, right? So from there, we'll identify the first deliverable, which is called minimal viable product, as I said, right? So that's something that we'll focus upon, which will give them at least to kickstart their project and have the uh, minimum product being available for them to use it. So I'm not saying they'll be able to use 100% of it, but again, they'll be able to start using it to 20%. At least we have
Like it's
uh,
operational in a way.
it is operational. The 20% is operational. They it might save some of their time, which they would have been doing manually. Let's suppose I'm giving an example of an automation project, right? So they might have been doing manual work for now. So with MVP, if we go ahead with giving at least 20%, we might be able to save 20% rather than just waiting for 3-4 months. So they can start utilizing it, and gradually in the incremental way, we start delivering them. So once we've identified the MVP, we'll just write down the high level requirements, right? Maybe we need a product owner and a BA there, and how many teams and everything gets decided basis it, like how complex it's gonna be. And we just do a very high level estimates, and if we have 2 developers, we might be able to complete it in this time frame.
That's clear. Yeah.
We define on the strategies, we'll have these many ceremonies for agile, and we again, so at the start of the planning itself, we need to understand whether waterfall will be good for this project or agile, because every project can't be delivered in agile, right? So that's the first step. We actually need to identify the project that is coming to us, whether falls under a bucket where we will be able to deliver it in waterfall, because waterfall is something when we have a good understanding of the requirement. Business has all of it. They have given it in first go itself. They know each and everything. Agile generally goes for a project where even client is not very sure about. He might think that after 2 months I'll see how it works, and if it goes well, maybe I'll move on to the next step, how we want to make it.
I was reading it somewhere that when we talk of agile, generally our mindset is that the team who is going to implement that application needs to be agile. But it starts from the customer. So customer has to have the agile mindset first. If the customer is not agile, you cannot deliver a project. You cannot have an agile set of delivery. You need to have waterfall if the customer is thinking waterfall. If the customer asks you about exactly give us a timeline when we can go live, when shall we do the UAT, what is the go live date, what is the exact budget. And if the customer starts asking you these questions, then he's talking about waterfall. He's not talking about agile. So the team, no matter how much we try as an implementation team, the project can never go agile.
Very true, Amit. Very true. And as you said, and not only me, I think many of us who has transitioned from waterfall to agile would have seen this probably, because if you are transitioning, obviously the counterpart are also making that transformations happen at their side, right?
Correct.
So and this is with experience only, it's mindset, right? So now I totally related to the theory that I had read in past, that agile is all about your mindset. So earlier I never used to have, what is this mindset? Everybody keep telling it's a mindset shift. But when I actually had that waterfall to agile delivery done, then I could sense that now I understand, after that practical experience, what does this mean. There were many reflections that I had done on myself, because I was also not a pro in it, right? So I came from a background where agile used to happen, but having that transition from waterfall mindset to agile gives you a hit, and I'm telling you, it takes a lot of your psychological energy with
and
you.
I think this is because of our education as well, right? When we are studying, we have been given a timeline that by this date you have an exams. So we only start studying when we are near the exam. So example, we have 1 month before the exams, but we know we can complete the syllabus in 15 days. So for the first 15 days, we are free, we are relaxed, we don't do anything. We only start studying for the last 15 days when we know that the exams are near and we have to pass it. So that's what waterfall is, right? You have a end date. You have to meet the end date, do whatever, but you have to finish it. Study late night, early morning, do whatever it takes, but that date is not going to shift. exam will be
Right.
there. So I think it's hardwired in our brains.
True, that is, Amit. I totally agree to what you said right now. So that is where we need to bring shift, right? And not only in your career, right? So when I started implementing it, I started to feel that having in my personal life also, right? So I started to give that authority and ownership to my daughter
Hmm.
as well.
True.
Because again, when we say no mindset, so
Correct.
if you're implementing it in your professional life, automatically it comes to your it helps in your personal life as well. When you
Yes.
because see, when you're giving authority, so one is, I'll say you need to complete it by this or this time. That person
Hmm.
might not have, अरे यार ये तो बस करना है, I'll do it, it's okay.
True.
अब मैं रात
True.
को बैठूं सुबह बैठूं I'll do it. And it's not
Yeah.
something that he's doing with his own interest, right? It's something that
Yes.
he's been very much imposed on. You have
Pushed
to
upon.
do it.
Yeah.
It's your job, right?
Yes.
That person will lose interest in it.
Yeah.
But when we shift that saying to say that see how much, you tell me how much time it's gonna take for you to deliver, instead of
Yeah.
me telling me telling him or her that you have to complete it
Hmm.
for within 2 days, right? So
Right.
now if I give that accountability to a team member, okay, see, this is the user story, this is the complexity of the user story. Now you tell me after your analysis how much time you need to build it, right?
Hmm.
So now as a person, I've given that person an authority to decide, right? So that person will feel, obliged that yes,
Mm.
this is my job now I have to do
Exactly.
it. So now that he'll take ownership in himself, that if I've committed for 8 hours or 10 hours, I have to complete it in those. But
Hmm.
again, it is not hard and fast. There could be situations, right, where he could not complete it with 10. So we have to understand what those challenges could be. So in agile, it's not that hard and fast. If you have set 10, you have to complete it in 10. No, it doesn't
Correct.
work like that. There could be
Yeah.
situation where we could have impediment, and we are here to resolve it, right? So that's the transparency that we have to bring in, where we say that what is it blocking you to complete it in 10 hours, which you
True.
you only committed, right? So that is how we grow as a team, with more collaboration, giving more authority to the team rather than we as managers having it on our own.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that works. So that's a mindset.
Yeah. All right. Now I think let's talk about some of the ceremonies.
So ceremonies, it's like you do story point estimation. So that's mostly so. Should we talk about the product backlog first, Amit?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Exactly. Like
so
everything.
yeah, so generally when we started off our project and everything, so we create a product backlog. So you can create it under Jira or Azure DevOps, whichever tool your company decides on, right?
Hmm.
So you create a product backlog, you have a list of user stories, you get those refined, you have a product owner, you take it with the stakeholder, you receive their sign off. So it's more of an interaction that you are doing, and business has to provide us a sign off that now this is ready for development, right?
Okay.
So the moment we get those user stories refined and ready for development, we have a ceremony called story point estimation, which is three amigos, right? So
Okay.
three amigos, what we do is whatever user stories which are ready for development, we talk about those in that 1 hour session. Product owner or a BA just walk through the team about those tickets, and they probably so there are very different methodology that you follow during this exercise. So one of it is, and my favorite is planning poker. So
Hmm.
it's actually when you do it, you'll enjoy it. If you do it in a way how it has to be, then you enjoy it. So
Yeah.
planning poker is something, when a BA has told you about the user story, you understand it, and you need to pick one card. So as story points work in Fibonacci series, right? So everybody will have to,
Fibonacci series, right?
right, Fibonacci
Yeah.
series.
Correct.
So everybody has to select their own cards,
Hmm.
and on the count of 10, or whenever everybody has, given their story points or selected their cards, we will just flip it off to see everybody's voting there,
Hmm.
what they have selected. So there could be a situation one would have selected it as 2 and the other would have selected it as 8. So there is a
Correct.
huge difference, right? So that is where we discuss. Again, we are not blaming or pinpointing that you didn't understand the user story and all. It's more of a collaboration. So where we keep saying, right, agile is more of a collaboration work that we do.
Correct.
So we'll ask that two story pointer. Why do you think it is two story points? It's two less of a user's story point that you have given, while the other things it has eight. So there could be any gaps that two might not have thought of, which eight would have thought of, or eight person would have thought beyond, which is not expected as that part of this user stories, right? So those conversations helps the team to come up on a single and more understanding phase, where two will say, no, I agree what he has said. So I think I also now want to change it to eight.
Correct.
Or vice versa. It would have said, yeah, I think I had thought it very vast, which might not be needed to be done as part of this user story. So I'm okay to make it two. So whatever
Okay.
is the maximum vote, we go for it. So let's suppose 8 agree to go for 2, and 2 is also okay to, convince others that this is what is needed, and be a product owners, everybody on the same page. So we go ahead and story point. So each user story will be pointed like that. So it's not
Okay.
about what you're taking in a sprint, only those user stories need to be pointed. It's just that you're grooming your backlog and pointing those user stories. So it might be a case that in a session you would have story pointed almost 50 story points, but basis your bandwidth and the capacity, in next sprint you would have taken 25 out of 50, right? But it's just
True.
that because sometimes what people do is, whatever I'm taking as part of my next sprint planning, I will just look into those user stories only. But that's not how it works. So it's just that whatever user stories are ready, you at least keep it side, you size them, and whenever you have a capacity, you just pull them in your sprint planning sessions, right? On your consecutive sprints, that way. So that's the one story point estimation call that is very important, I would say, to come up on a simple or a understandable base for that particular user story that we, or the functionality. Then the next session is sprint planning, where you define the goal of a particular sprint, right? So basis your capacity, so how much so there is a capacity tracker also that you can work upon, where you might take planned leaves of your team and everything you can collect in advance, and during sprint planning, let team only come forward and say that this is the user story, I have a capacity, I can take it up. Let them only decide whether they have a capacity or not, right? So it's more
Correct.
of an authority that we are giving to the team. So in the sprint planning session, again, we walk through the user stories basis the priority that business want to see. So we'll discuss on the user stories. We already have a sprint backlog that we had created. It might be a situation where we might not take one or two out of them basis the capacity, but at least we'll have that sprint backlog been created. So in the sprint planning session, BA walkthroughs the user story one by one. Then team talk about it, and then they come forward to take it up. So again, it's not a scrum master or a product owner jobs to assign it to the user story, because again, we are taking authority out of them, right? So it's the team who needs to take care of their planned leave, that this is the day I might be on leave, I might not be able to take it more than this. So I'll be able to pull it. So team decides. So by end of that sprint planning session, which is again for 1 hour mostly, again, it depends on the complexity and the size of the team. So the sprint goal gets defined. So now I know by end of the sprint, these many story points I'll be able to deliver as a team. Right? Then once you have decided to have 2 weeks or 3 weeks, which would have already been decided during your planning sessions, high level planning that you would have done, right? So once your sprint,
How long is the sprint cycle, right?
yes, so it should be mostly 2 to 3 weeks, so that at least you are able to deliver faster and have the feedback loop on with the stakeholders as you progress. 4 weeks, it's not an ideal situation where you're
Yeah, I
taking up
think 2 to 3 weeks is good enough. Yeah.
2 to 3 weeks. Ideal situation, if possible, go for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Right. So daily stand-up is the one that I just mentioned about in
Yes.
our previous conversation. Make it 15 minutes, but you keep a parking lot where you can discuss any issues in
Yes.
detail.
Right.
So uh, daily stand-up is the one that happens on daily basis. Stakeholder is an important uh, person to be there as part of your delivery. So if you're working in your service organizations or something, you have a client, right, who keeps a track of it. So it's good to have them in your daily stand-up so that
Hmm.
it brings up transparency and trust
Correct.
and faith, right? That
Yes. Yeah.
he or she is aware of the progress that we guys are making. So daily stand up is the one, and the process make self organized. Let team talk about it again. So people generally have that fear that if I give authority to the team, what would I do, right?
Yes. Yes. I think that's a challenge with the leadership. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm giving all of my dog. People will, and it's very true. If it succeeds, it's a team. If it fails, it's a project manager, right?
I
So,
think I have a line on this one as well, which I read somewhere, that a good manager, the value of good manager is always realized when
hmm,
he's not there.
yes,
When a team is working and a manager is there, people may feel that what is his need? We don't need him. But when he's not there, then people start missing him. That's the quality of a good
exactly.
manager.
Exactly. And Amit, to be true, I try this on myself also. I try to give authority to the team rather than me taking it up, even though I support them e-
Hmm.
uh, to for their deliverables wherever needed, so that they come, as stars in the team. Because
Correct. Yeah.
if we fail as a team, right? It's
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
a manager fault or is a developer or a tester's fault or a BA's
Correct.
fault, right? If we succeed, we all succeed. It's a
Yes.
team who is given those kudos, right?
True.
So daily stand up is something that we talk about. Then on the last day of the sprint, we have sprint review session where
Hmm.
we keep a call with our end customers where we keep them updated about the progress that we have made. Again, definition of done also matters a lot. So many people are confused about what does this mean. So definition of done, it again depends on team to team, whether they want to make it till production or they just want to make it till QA complete state, right? So it
Correct.
all
Yeah.
depends. So once
Hmm.
we have QA complete, because it doesn't go in a waterfall. So some people, what they do is they'll develop all three user stories. If they would have, as a part of their sprint goal, if they would have defined three user stories, they'll develop all of it and then they'll put it into testing. So half they'll develop and half they'll do testing. So this is not
Yeah.
how it works. Once you have
Correct.
done your user story, deploy it into QA, let QA test it.
Hmm.
You develop, again deploy that user story, let QA test it. So by end of
Hmm.
the sprint, you need to have whatever you have user stories defined as part of your sprint goals needs to be QA complete,
Hmm.
right? It's
Okay.
not that development complete we did and in the next one we'll do testing. So that is now how it works. So sprint review is the ceremony that we have on the last day of the sprint where we just review all of our user stories. Again, it's up to you. You take your team along. It's a best situation where you take all of your developers and testers to feel, empowered in those sessions. But again, BA can also take those with the stakeholders and any feedbacks or something you can just maybe you can decide whether it is very important. If it comes out to be a P0 or a P1, obviously you need to cater to it immediately.
Hmm.
But if it
True.
is something that you can keep it for later backlog, you just add it in a backlog, and whenever you have a capacity, you can pull those suggestions in. So that is
Okay.
how it works. Because sometimes what people do is whatever is coming, we need to fix it up. Right. So
Yeah.
this is not how it works. So you need to
Correct.
analyze,
Correct.
you need to understand the priority, put it in the product backlog, and maybe you assess it later whenever you have a capacity. And again,
I
it's
think this is a very good point. I think a lot of people face challenges over here because as soon as developer has finished his job, given it to QA, and QA raise some issues or bugs in it, they feel the need to fix that
fixed.
task or ticket in the same sprint. And if the developer is not able to fix it, because that was not something he has anticipated when he was taking the task or might be implementing the task, they feel like the developer or development team is not doing the right job.
Hmm. True.
They
True.
forget that this thing where the issues are there is again a task which developer has to work on. It's not the same task on which he was working on. It's a different task and can go in backlog.
True, true, Amit. And Amit, I also had this challenge in past, right? So what I did is, when you're planning for a sprint, right? So you just keep some contingency for the defects as well, right?
True.
What we do is, whatever capacity we have, we just keep it for our user story development. Nobody thinks of what if defects comes, right? And that is
Exactly.
where the struggle comes during your sprint. And developers are like, I'm working on this user story. I do not have, if I work on this defect, my sprint, my user story
delay.
will get spill over to the next one, right? So
Yes.
that is something that we need to avoid, right? These kind of situations. So as a manager or a scrum manager, we need to have that contingency, and maybe we need to have that stakeholder also taken into confidence that we might have to keep some 5% or 10% up to your organization or the team, how you want to take it. You need to have it, because agile is something that you're doing incremental. Every sprint will have UAT deployment, every sprint will have production deployment, every sprint will have QA defects also. So there could be
Correct.
chances that once you do a QA in the UAT in the next, you might get UAT defects also, right? So that is where
True.
all of the discipline that team was following goes into waste, right? So
True.
keep a contingency. If a developer is working, just see whether it is a P0, just have work on the priority of that defect during the sprint, right? Just work on the priority. If it is a blocker, obviously developer will have to keep the other user story that he's working upon aside and fix that up, so that at least tester can continue and we are on time, right?
True.
But if it is like P2, P3, and we can still work by end of the sprint when developer has worked upon all of the user stories which he had planned for the sprint. Keep last half a day or one day, whatever is, as per your team's comfort, you just keep it for bug fixing, right? So that at least your cadence that you have set for your sprint goal is also met, along you have also delivered the defect. And developer need to have full focus while they are developing. They cannot just, I'm working now, I have a defect and you need to fix it. We need to understand the priority before actually going to them and saying, no, you have to fix it.
True.
Right?
True.
If it is a blocker, obviously they'll also understand.
I think developer understands like what he needs to work on. He understands. I mean,
Exactly.
developers do understand on this one.
Right.
Great.
So always having a bit of a contingency during your sprints helps a lot in a better sprint executions, I would say. Right. So sprint review is the one you have a suggestion, work on the priority, see the severity, and then decide whether you need to take it in this sprint itself. Is it a must have? So there is a Moscow thing that works, right? In Agile, must have, should have, could have. Right.
Yes.
So if it is a must have stakeholders, then you have nothing. You need to maybe let the next user story that you're working on be impacted due to this. Or you just have a communication and say that we understand this is a problem, but do you think that it will be a blocker for you if we do not deliver it with this sprint? Right. So that kind of conversations are very much needed with your stakeholders to decide.
And who is the final authority in saying that, or maybe defining the Moscow?
It's a product
Like
owner.
product owner.
Product owner along with the end users that he's working upon.
Okay.
So product owner is a bridge for us to connect it to the end users.
But from
So
a
he
team's
gets
perspective, product owner is the one who will decide in the end. He
Right.
has definitely he has his own communication channels with the customer and everyone. So he will decide in the steerco or wherever he wants to decide. But in the end, he
he'll
is
be
the
the
one who is going to flag that this is a must have, should have, or could have.
Right. So he'll decide the
Great.
priority for the team. Right.
Great,
Now
great.
sprint review done. Then we have.
Yes.
So sometimes what people do is, again, I'm telling you from my practical experience, and I think this session is more on the practical
That's
rather
what
than
we are here
having
for.
those
Yeah, true.
bookish knowledge. Right?
Correct,
So
correct.
what we say is sprint review has to happen on the last day of the sprint, which makes complete sense because that is the day we decide whether there are any suggestions or whatever you have developed as part of the sprint, you do it. Retrospections are also mostly said to have it on the last day of the sprint, right? But it's okay to have it on the next 2 days when the sprint starts. But what you can do is when your sprint is starting, probably you just create a retro board for the team, share it across, encourage to fill that up uh, with the progress that they are making to the sprint. So that what happens if we just leave it for the end, right? Or maybe for the day when we have a retrospection, right?
Mhm.
People might forget the issues or
Correct.
the improvement that they would have thought of, right? So better encourage the team to have that board filled up during the execution itself, so that on the day when we have, so I generally what I follow, I don't do it on the last day of the sprint, because it's already very heavy, I would say, because
True.
people have to work on their UAT deployments, they have the sprint review, so stand-ups, so a lot of things happens on the last day of the sprint, right? Because we need to plan for the UAT will also go in the next day, right? So that is why, and next day we have sprint planning, so I always do retro of the previous sprint on the second day of the next sprint.
Okay.
To balance out teams work, having too many meetings in one day probably will not give them
Yeah.
enough bandwidth to work upon, right? So
Correct.
I generally follow this practice.
Okay.
So retro team can work upon during their sprint cycle, and how it is, and this is as I said, it is the most compromised ceremony.
This
People
is
take
what
it
I
for
feel as
granted.
well, because I have seen a lot of retros where people are just following the routine task. Nothing is changing. Like sprint after sprint, the same retros are happening. Nobody's taking any action on it. But it's formality sort of a thing, which has to happen because it's a part of the agile. Otherwise, it's not really needed.
Then comes the sprint retrospection. So in my view, I generally do not, so in books and everything where you read agile, probably it says that it has to happen on the last day of the sprint. But in my view, last day is very heavy for the team, because they have to work on sprint review, they have to work for their UAT deployments for that particular sprint. So I schedule it on the second day of the next sprint. But what I do is I share the retrospective board in advance during the sprint cycle itself, so that if in case during the sprint execution, if they have anything that they wanted to discuss for improvements or something during the cycle, probably they can just at least put their comments. We can discuss it in a formal ceremony, but at least we'll have those points when they would have thought of, right? Because what happens is if we keep it for the last, we might forget, right? What challenges, what happened, how did we tackle them, or is there anything that we see as an
Correct.
improvement? And this I've noticed it happens. I mean, we as humans forget things, right? So
Yeah.
better whenever you remember or you know it, just write it down. So that's something I encourage the team also to do. And retrospection, in in my experience, I've seen people take it for granted. And when I started this journey, probably I also used to take it on a very lighter note. Oh, sprint review, it's okay, we'll have it later, it's okay. That is the most compromise. You just keep on rescheduling it after a sprint or two, and then you forget what did we do in that sprint, right?
True. Correct.
So I remember working with one of the stakeholder, and she mentioned, no, I know we take it very lightly, but this is something you can actually think of what we can improve as a team, right? What struggles you found, and good things anyways we talk about. So there are three sections in it, right? What went well, what didn't go well, what improvements you think we can bring as a team to our Scrum, right? So we can talk about, again, if we are talking about improvements or didn't go well, it's very necessary to talk about what went well also, to have the team's morale also been up in those conversations. So
Exactly.
again, it's a mindset and a human nature, right? If we always talk about what didn't go well and what needs an improvement, probably team will not feel motivated, right? We need
Yeah,
to
they feel
appreciate their.
discouraged. Yeah.
Right. So we need to encourage their efforts as well. And that is a section or a retrospection, which gives an opportunity to talk about what they did well, right? But again, at the same time, there could be loopholes also, which we need to talk about, and how we can overcome those challenges in future. Right. So that's a very important discussion, and there are very good takeaways I've noticed that comes out of those ceremonies also. This ceremony also, because because now you're discussing as a team. Again, I'm not going as an authoritative person and saying, "See, this didn't happen. Let's do it. You do it like this. You should do it like this. You
Correct.
did it like this. You do it." So it's not about blame game. Sometimes people start having that blame. Game open in those sessions. So this is not at all about blaming anyone.
Correct. Yeah.
All about how we can improve. So we is very important word when we run agile, right? Because
True.
it's not about I, it's about
Yes.
we. So
Yes.
when we say collaboration, we need to start using these small words which have a huge impact, right? I replacing with we makes a lot of
True.
impact in the communication. So it should be how, as a team, we make it more effective in our coming sprints. And there are a lot of improvements that I think we have it.
Give us an example, like what worked well, what didn't work well in one of your sprint, which you think is like an eye opening, which you were not expecting.
So if I talk about, see, mostly what did go well. So earlier, as I gave you one example, right, where we didn't have contingency and we just planned a sprint basis, the user stories and all.
Correct. Yeah,
So
exactly.
that came out of a retrospection call only, right?
All right.
Because that is the time where we reflect on what we did, what didn't go well, and how we can improve. So if I take this example where in a sprint we had not taken any of the contingency and we just planned a sprint from the development perspective. End of the day, we didn't have any time and team was like outburst, right? What should I do? Should I take up a development task? Should I take, what should I do? So they look after you, right? Now you tell me as a scrum master what you want me to do. Had it been we would have given a contingency, they would have come up with their own critical. I think we should do it at the end, which is okay because you have that contingency, right? So that's something I remember. We started to have that 5% contingency fixed into our plan because team was very overwhelmed by end of the sprint. And initially, when they transformed from waterfall to agile, right? And this was my first experience also as a transformation lead, right? Because prior to that, I've just worked on the projects which were already agile, but this was the transformation, right? So that is where we understood that yes, it makes sense to have that contingency, and this was probably which came out of our retrospection, and I think it is helping us a lot. And having the stakeholder also been convinced with this thought is also important. So again, it's a mindset change. It's not about how it is. So that's an example I remember, Amit. When we have that contingency being placed into our plan, I think team has enough room to actually decide and prioritize their work accordingly. If you do not have any defect being logged, work on the other user story for the next week. Permanent, right? You will give it on the first day of the sprint to QA to work upon.
True.
That way.
Yeah, one question which I was asking is that, like, suppose we know that we have, say, 15 sprints in our project, right? We have approximately 15. So with the project is running from the last 10 sprints are already going on. And every sprint, people have already raised some of the things which can be improved, some of the things which worked well. So they are doing like from the last 10 weeks. And now we know there's a Tuckman's model, right? Norming, forming, storming. In this one, now the team is like fully agile, quite operational, very independent, doing things on their own. Do not think there is any issues going on or things are progressing really on a well pace. Do you still think that retrospectives are required in this case, or do you check with the team, because it's going to add up like 1-2 hours in a week of everyone's time, right, which is billable to the project? So in this case, do you still think to have retrospective sessions scheduled, or you think we should check with the team on our Teams channel or something that retrospectives coming, do you have some suggestions, or now since you're saying that you send that board to the team to start filling up during the sprint, and if you see nothing, then you still continue the session, or do what in this case?
No, in my view, I think we should still keep it, because even if it is going good, let's talk about good things, no? Let's talk about it.
Yeah, but we have already been discussed 10 things, like, and now again the same thing they're going to repeat. That's what I'm saying. Are we doing retrospective or repetition, or
So, Amit, there is, I think, I mean, everything going smooth also gives us a thought that something that we might have to change, right? Every time it cannot be very smooth. For like 7
Correct,
sprints is a huge time, right? So that also gives us a thought that something we might have to improve. Why team is not having any issues? Again, I'm not saying it in a negative sense, but
Correct,
that again we need to maybe we are taking a lot of time, or maybe we have a leveraged time also been provided. Even though we had kept for 5%, we see how it is progressed, and how again we take it from our experience from last sprints. I believe we have been, so maybe we have given buffer, or maybe there could be something, right? So we need to talk about it and to understand, is there anything we can do differently? Or maybe if we've been doing very good, probably we might improve on how we can deliver it more fast. In terms of, maybe we take new user story, we understand maybe a developer has having a bandwidth by end of the sprint, so let's have something else also been pulled. So there could be ample of opportunities also, even if it is going very good for last 7-8, which I don't think would be an ideal situation. So that again gives me a sense that something is not right behind.
I tell you why I asked this question, because in one of my case, like, customers asked me before the meeting that, is there anything important which needs to be discussed? Do you really need it? Sometimes team members ask you, I have some other urgency.
Yeah.
Am I required in that call? I do not have anything. I do not have anything to participate. I have checked the board.
Very
It all
correct
looks
question.
good. Then in that case, do I need to be part of that call? And then if in a team of 4 members or 5 members, if 2 members are not attending the call because of many X reasons, out of all the other sprint cycles, this is the only meeting which feels like you can just cancel it out.
Right. But I mean, similar thoughts I also.
Okay. But you don't cancel it.
I don't cancel it.
Okay,
to be very true.
And that's how it should be.
I try not to cancel it. Even if you do, if people are not available on the day I've scheduled, I'll postpone it. Maybe I'll shorten that call for, like, suppose 15, 20, 30 minutes. But what happens is, when you give an opportunity that you should write it, because they'll put all their minds to think then, right? Right now everything is going good, they'll not think everything is good, because I have also faced a situation where team comes and says, Kritika, everything was right, do we want to have it? I says, let's have it, let's talk about good things only. And when you give an opportunity, because when I go into the call, so how I run it, even though I expect team to update the ports, which they don't, and that's a real scenario, Amit. So team
absolutely
doesn't fill it. They just wait for the last day or the meeting day to actually fill it up, right?
True.
So what I do is, initial 5 minutes, we all go off camera, we all go on mute, and I give them an opportunity to think and write. So generally, sometimes I give everybody has to write 1 or 2 points at least. So again, not to force, but to make them think, right? Because until unless you won't think, you won't be getting an idea. So you need a focus time to actually think, because while you are executing a cycle, you won't spend time. I did this wrong, I would have done it right, or everything is going so I'm on time, everything. But when you will actually just focus for 5 minutes, you'll understand, I think this would have been better. At least not many, but you'll find couple of them at least.
No, but this always happens. Yeah.
Right.
Whenever you have to write something, like if you open a paper, if somebody asks you to write something on a pen and paper, you'll always feel like, okay, there's nothing to write. But when you actually take the pen and actually have the paper in front of you, you will definitely have 10 things to write.
Right. And I have seen a situation where team would have said, ki, no, I do not have anything to mention. And when I give them 5 minutes into the call, or sometimes I
Yeah.
give them 10 minutes also, ki, let's just go off camera,
Hmm.
go on mute. I'll stop sharing my screen. Just write what do
That's
you
a
think?
five
Even if
five
it's,
dedicated minute of thinking time for them. So
yes.
yeah,
And I've seen
perfect.
that people have also given like more than what they would have, given in
Correct.
the previous sprints. Because,
Yes.
and if not something, at least you'll get something out of these retro if you take these ceremonies seriously,
Yes.
and you'll improve
And
as a team.
how do you make sure that you're tracking that the points of improvement? How do you make sure that you're improving those things? Because as soon as the retro is over, people again get back in the same mood of working in the same
Hmm.
style, same pattern. So how do you make
Hmm.
sure, like as a scrum master, because scrum master is the owner of that ceremony, so as a scrum master, what is your responsibility to make sure that the team, the points the team has highlighted which needs to be improved, does not get repeated, or in the next retro, or they discuss what has been done to resolve those issues.
So that's a kind of a health check that we'll have to do in every sprint. So what I do is, we do it on Azure. So we are using Azure DevOps as a tool for
Hmm.
project management purpose and tracking and everything. So we have
Correct.
a retrospective board there. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll just tell you what sequence that we follow, right,
Mm-hmm.
while doing
Okay.
it. So first 5-7 dedicated times to think and update the board, right?
True.
Then there is uh, there is also a survey over there where
Mm-hmm.
team selects how their work life balance was during the sprint.
Okay. Okay.
They vote about psychological safety. Did they feel safe during the sprint execution?
Mm-hmm.
Efficiency. So there are in Azure DevOps, you'll get these options while filling up the
True.
survey.
Yeah.
So that way
Hmm.
you can sense the team's pulse, right? See how they felt during the sprint. And that is something that gives us a reflection also, because I remember when we started our transition with first sprint, psychological safety was like 10%.
True.
Clarity was 20%. So
True.
that gave
True.
me a reflection that something I
Yeah.
might have to do it differently now, right? Maybe team is not feeling safe, or they're not, they're still hesitant. With sprint on sprint, we started seeing an improvement over there. So with 10 psychological safety, it went to 40, then to 60. So that is how you see the graph growing, right? If it comes down, then again, it's a reflection for you to what differently you can do. So it's always about
True.
executing, learning, improving,
Hmm.
right? Then first, sorry, I'll come to how I do it,
Sure.
Amit.
Sure.
So
Sure.
there is a survey that team has to fill, right, which I just talked about. First 5 minutes, dedicatedly think and update the code. Once they
Mm-hmm.
have done it, we just all come on the camera, and there is also a voting button over there. So let's suppose if I have a team of 4 to 5 members, they would have just updated the board with their comments. So within those 5 or 10 minutes, whatever you, they can also vote on a comment that they want to be discussed in detail.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right. So there could be like ample of points. So out of 10, they might select 5 that they want to
True.
talk about. So that voting gives us an opportunity to discuss on the point that team feels, which is the most important one, and which they think we can improve or we can do things
Hmm.
differently
Something
on,
about it.
right?
Yeah.
So I just go by the descending order. The highest voting one comes first for discussion. So basis
True.
that vote, we select that comment, we talk about that comment, come up with the action points, because
Mm-hmm.
obviously when you are discussing, we give an authority to the team itself. Again, we are making them accountable, we are making them collaborative, and we are giving that opportunity to think that, okay, you feel this is not right, anything that you can suggest how we can improve. Again, it has to be a collaborative, not to impose that this is what you should do, right?
True.
You should being replaced with we should makes a lot of impact, right?
True.
So we can talk about more. What do you think? So again, so an agile. So recently I met a coach who made me understand what is the difference between coaching and mentoring. So coaching is something that you ask questions, relevant questions, and let a person only come to the conclusion.
Correct.
So it's like the 5 whys that we do, right? You ask one question, that person will, then you ask another. So automatically you are drilling it down, but it is not something that I am telling him to do, right? It is something basis that process he himself or her, he or she himself will come to the conclusion. Because if they are deriving the conclusion, probably they'll follow it also. But if I am going to tell them that this is what you should do, probably that will not have much impact. So basis this, I ask them only, what do you think we can do better in this situation? We have the actions. So there is a Azure DevOps board where you can write down the actions as well to track for the future. So it's not that you just discussed and all got vanished. You're not looking into it. So we keep on regularly reviewing those action points also. And when we think as a team we have started to follow, we close those action points as well. So that at least we know, yes, this was the point came out of it. Suppose that contingency one also. So when we started to implement that into our planning, we close that task saying that we have started to follow it. So these are the actions and where you can note it down and for improvements you can track.
Correct. No, I think this is a very good point, and I believe the people who are watching this this video may learn that how you should be conducting retros. It's not a formality. There is a lot to learn. There is a lot to understand, and how can you boost your team's morale to make sure that they are effective sprint after sprint after sprint. So if you are skipping, any of you are doing retros but skipping it, please do not skip it.
True.
All right. So this led me to the next question, which is about the tools. So like I think you have worked on tools like Jira and DevOps, and it can be very overwhelming for the beginners who get into the platform. So if someone wants to become agile ready for the interviews, do you have any tips? Like where do they should be starting? What should they be doing?
So Amit, so now since we are talking about the tools, right? So in most of my experience, I have used Jira for tracking purpose. So recently with my current organization, uh, I I had started to learn Azure DevOps, wherein I think none of the team members had an idea how to use it from the project manager. Even though we used to maintain CI/CD pipelines and everything, Git repos and everything is being maintained over there, but from the project management point, I learned it from the scratch, I would say, and it's very different from how we queries remains the same, because Jira also you need to write queries in the background, right? So query is the common, but the way we write in Jira is quite different in Azure DevOps. But I think Azure DevOps is more interactive compared to
I really
Jira.
like it.
Exactly, because Jira doesn't give you a vast horizon in terms of having the matrices being maintained, right? So Azure DevOps has those opportunities wherein and to start with, I think it's very good to have the dashboards been created or the matrices been created. So when we talk about team velocity, when we were actually sizing the user stories and getting those into sprint, so those visual representations helps a lot. So let's suppose for velocity, I think we didn't talk much about it. So velocity is something that what team could deliver in a sprint. So let's suppose if I had committed at the start of the sprint that 30 story points I will be completing. I mean, as a team, when I'm saying it means
team
is completing,
the whole
right?
Team,
Yes. So, but we might complete only 20 by end of the sprint. So 20 becomes a velocity for our sprint, for that particular sprint. Second sprint, because again, it is not set rules. It's all experience that derive us to improve further and be a better team, right? In next sprint, we might hit 20 story points probably, right? And in third, it could be 30 again. So we'll just take an average of 3 sprints and see what would be the velocity. So this helps us to have more predictability in
Yes.
terms of understanding what as a team, how many story points we can take, right, as a team.
Yes.
Again,
Yeah.
first two or three sprints is more like an experiment. And then after 3, we get a cadence that with this number of people and this number of team members, this is the overall story point work that we can take and deliver. So that helps in predictability, and from the budgeting perspective also, we can start seeing like what is the velocity of the team and they can deliver every sprint, right? So these matrices, if they are shown on the UI or the dashboard to the stakeholder, probably gives a very good interaction or good visibility, transparency in terms of the work progress that we are doing. So I would highly recommend to have the planning boards, because many organizations are still using Excels, right? To update this user story completed, it is in
Correct.
progress. There could be manual errors, right? So this is a live board which refreshes after every minute. Once you have written the queries, it's just one or whatever effort it takes. It is not much efforts that it takes, but you create a board and let it be live. Get it refresh after every 5 minutes. So it's a live status that you are actually sharing with the stakeholders by end of the day and every day. And you don't have to work once you have created, until and unless there are any updates to how you have created that board.
Yes, and
And
dashboards can
no
be shared
Excel.
with the management. You don't have to send the reports. It's the same thing. Come every week, check on your own. Like
Yes.
no status reporting, anything like that.
Right. No Excels,
Pretty
because
good.
Excels
Yeah.
lead to a lot of confusions, and we might make manual errors. What if yesterday it got completed? I'm sending the status for 2 days back, but now it has been completed, right? So it might
That's the
create
problem. Yeah.
confusions.
Then you need to tell them that this status report is of yesterday or day before yesterday,
Right.
something
A
like
lot
that.
of confusions, lot of
Yeah.
explanations. So create a board, share it with them. Any time of the day they want to see it, they can just look into the board and track the progress.
Correct. Great. Would you also like to mention about zero sprint?
Zero sprint. Yes, that's the most important sprint actually, I would say. And many people doesn't know about this sprint, right? So
Yeah.
it's mostly when you are starting off a project, right? So sprint 1 starts when you have the cadence and you know how much work and what will be the cadence and the sprint goal you're going to meet in the consecutive. But in sprint 0, generally where you're doing the backlog refinement, where you are setting up the configurations or the environments that you need to set up before you actually start delivering the user story. So that all work goes into sprint 0. So sprint 0 doesn't have any dedicated timelines. It could take 1 week, it could take 2 weeks, it could take 3 weeks. So that is the time when you're getting ready to start delivering values with your consecutive sprints, which is sprint 1. So it's just prerequisite activities that we perform as part of that sprint 0, maybe the timelines, MVP timelines, environment. So if you are doing a transition from waterfall to agile, right? So you need to have a dedicated environment where you will be developing, testing, testing. So that is the sprint 0 cycle, which you can utilize to have all the pre-work done.
Okay. Good one. Thank you so much for that. Now I think let me move on to the Gen AI part. So since you're actively working with Gen AI and your delivery practices right now, can you give us one or two examples like where Gen AI is actually helping delivery teams work smarter?
So, Amit, you already know, right? Now our world is moving very fast towards having AI capability, and there's a lot of push and stress for leaders like us also, right, to move into that zone where AI takes a lot of it,
Correct.
right? If you know it, you're in. If you don't know it, you're gone, right? So
Yes.
AI is something. See, I don't know whether it is a bubble or something, but it is definitely very helpful tool in terms of reducing your manual efforts. So so I'll just take a very simple example, not in terms of coding and all. So Copilot, everybody has started to use it, right? So there were times when we used to write emails also, right?
True.
We used
Correct.
to spend like hours and hours to just make it very effective and understandable.
Yes,
So
correct.
now with these capabilities and everything, we're moving faster. So where I used to take like 1 hour, 2 hours to write just a very small and, a concise email, I just tell the AI platform just to create it for me. I take it. Obviously, we need to read it, right? You cannot
Correct,
just
correct, correct.
fully
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
be dependent on it. Obviously, you need to make your own senses also when you are implementing it. So
Mhm.
at least it is saving a lot of our time also in terms of for the project managers. I think PPTs and all, it helps a lot in creating a lot of the
Yes.
manual work that we used to do earlier. So that's something that is very utilized for developing. I've seen like my team is working on GitHub Copilot, right? So GitHub Copilot gives a lot of opportunity to have agents being installed into it. It helps a lot
True.
in having the reviews been done. So where we used to have that Excel, right? Where every tech lead or tech arc used to go
True.
into code by code and mark it whether
Correct.
he reviewed it. Yes, yes, yes. Now it's all done with the help of Copilot. So it has
True.
really, it's a very good tool if we start using it. So our team has started to utilize these small. So it's a vast area. So to start with,
Yes.
it's like sometimes you feel you're not able to, but once you start using it, probably it will give you a lot of benefits that you won't look back then, right? So I would suggest if you're using GitHub Copilot gives you a lot of opportunity to write the code as well.
Yep.
So you just need
Correct.
to be very good in giving your prompts. It's all about prompts, how
Yes.
you give
It's
it.
all about content.
It's a
Correct.
Exactly. It's a language that you have to just, so like we instruct our kids, right?
Yes.
Do it. Sometimes we do it, right? So that's the instruction that we have to give it to Copilot, and it's a model, right? So we are learning, but that model is also learning. So
Hmm.
once you start using it, it will also refine day by day. So if I talk about the accuracy, probably it might give you 80% accuracy now, but it might give you 90% accuracy because it is also learning from the prompts that you are providing to it. So it's all about how you give the prompts. But this is the tool that I believe will improve the efficiency in the work. But again,
Mhm.
we just can't fully relate to what has been provided by it. We need to have our senses also, need to review it before we actually do it, right?
So, Kritika, like since you hold CSM and PMI-ACP certification, like so, someone earlier in their career who wants to do a certification, which certification do you recommend they should be doing, and what are the benefits or pros and cons of each certification? If you can tell us.
So, certification, I would say, Amit. For Agile, there are many certifications that you do, right? Not only limited to CSM and PMI ACP, but what I would suggest is whatever certification you do, it's good to have it because you wide your horizon in terms of thinking. And
Mhm.
when you actually go into your practical implementations, some of the terminologies or some of the learnings that you had from these certifications would probably help, right? But I would suggest if you're getting a practical hands-on basis the certification that you have done, probably nothing good like that. So
Okay.
certifications are important to at least understand. And as a PM also, it's not only limited to Agile, there could be any other certificate because if you are interacting with the team, even if it is a technical team, right? So we are managing team who is technical enough, right? So for us, not only Agile, there could be lot other technical certifications also that might help to understand their challenges, to understand their progress, right? So we might not go into the coding part as of now, but at least to understand also it is very important. So similarly with Agile or these PMI ACP, at least it gives us the points where we can have interactive discussions with the team
Correct.
and understand their point of view rather than just been relying on whatever they say is right. So
True. True.
sometimes we as managers also have to counter them so that at least and you'll get to ask questions only when you have a hands-on experience, or you have done few certification where actually you can relate to what team is talking about.
Yeah,
So
so I think
that's
basically
retrospective.
learning is more important than doing any certification, and I believe certification
Yes.
only gives you a validation that the principles which you've studied or what you have learned
Hmm.
are tested and proven as a part of a certification.
True.
Thank you so much for giving this answer. And one last question which I have is on the AI part. So I think a lot of people are actually worried that are AI going to take their jobs? What's your take on it?
So Amit, I don't think AI gonna take our jobs, right? So
Mhm.
AI is good in terms of giving you a different perspective, reducing your manual efforts, but probably still it can't do things which humans can do, right? So, say for example, stakeholder management. AI is not going to interact anyways to the client directly, right? So,
Correct.
unless and until we don't have that, I would say bond, right?
Mhm.
Because AI is a machine, right?
True.
But
Yeah.
you need to have human touch at some of the places where you want to have those interactions or the stakeholder management that probably AI cannot provide. But given that AI still have many benefits, I would say, where it helps us to do better development, reduce our efforts, and for the project managers, probably it cut down our efforts in preparing the PowerPoint slides and
True.
various things that it can help us with. So I don't think it would be replacing. But
Great. I also
yes,
feel like AI will not going to replace our jobs, but AI is going to replace the people who don't know the AI.
exactly. You
But
rightly
yes,
said, Amit. Yes.
yeah, I think, Kritika, I think we all have learned a lot in this session. Really, thank you so much for giving us insights, teaching us how what the agile looks like in a practical world. Thank you very much. And to all the viewers who are actually watching this, if you have any questions, please feel free to put your comments in the comment section, and we'll happy to answer it. Kritika, I will come back to you. Like if I have a question which
Sure,
I can answer.
anytime.
Great.
Anytime, Amit. Thank you. Thank you
Thank you
so
very much.
much.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Bye.